smell what The Rock is cooking. Acknowledge me. You don't know what hard times are, Daddy.
We are bad to the bone. Get it? Bad to the bone.
Tell me when I'm telling lies.
I'll fight anybody. Who do you want? Just let me fight him.
Let me tell you something, Jim Ross.
Bigger powers, yeah.
We got it for you.
We are the best of the best.
Woo! Wheeling, dealing. Smart marks. And that's the bottom line, cause Stone Cold said so.
Welcome to another episode of Talking in the Building, a pro wrestling podcast where we focus on the promo. We talk about the hype talkers, we hype the hype man, and we pontificate upon the promo. And all you need to know is that this show is all about the pro wrestling promo. We don't get into the rumors. We don't get it too much into the backstage. We like studying the promo. And you're joined tonight by my co-host from the East Coast. I got my boys out here, Adrian and Greg. What's up, fellas? How we doing tonight?
Feeling good, feeling great, man. Happy for another round.
All right,
feeling
ready
good.
to get into it.
I'm drinking the official drink of our next world heavyweight champion, Prime.
Oh,
Just
no.
wanted to say 5 letters, 1 word, Prime.
When he faces Mr. Beast in a couple of years, right? That's how it goes. Anyway, not to get too topical. So tonight, fellas, look, we've been out of school for a while, but we're gonna get into it because tonight we're looking at that next class, that graduating class, those that are on the cusp of graduating to whatever main roster, whatever company you might look at, but some of them already signed. And we're really trying to see how class is in session right now. Who are valedictorians of the promo at this time? Who are those that are ready to step foot and deliver that next, level promo that stands hand in hand, with anybody else who's top right now? So, these guys and girls didn't just get to the top right now. They're still working at it. And we're going to look at some of them tonight. So we all brought our own promos for who we deem might be that next breakout star based on the promo. And, they might not be there all the way, but definitely we're getting there. So I wanted us to think also on what makes us think about that breakout star. But before I do that, I think back to when I was in high school and I was definitely still obsessed with the promo. And I definitely wrote a graduation speech because I tried out for one. I didn't get it. But I'll tell you what, if you have to think about today and you're looking at these breakout stars, you're looking at these catchphrases, because some of these wrestlers don't quite have it there. What were some of those catchphrases you might have thought out that broke out, or those speeches or those promos that broke out a wrestler that you really enjoyed? For me, a few years ago, it really was Sami Zayn kind of coming into his own during the Bloodline and towing this fine line between the funny guy and also the serious guy, and a guy that can really go both ways. But really what did it for me, and I think did it for many people, was that Bloodline promo where he's talking to Jay, he's talking to Roman, and he said, he's not feeling too oozy, right? And the crowd reacts, and they pan on his camera. And for me, that's his graduation. That's his valedictorian moment. That's the moment where we know you are a made man. You are here to stay because you can do comedy, you can do serious, you can do the death match, you can do whatever it needs to be done. You can do it. I'm going to come to y'all to think about it right now. But what's that moment for a wrestler that you followed that really transitioned them to that upper echelon, that graduation, so to speak, through the promo, right? Because for Sami, I've been watching him since, let's just break the curtain, he was El Generico forever. And to see him on top, it just makes me feel real happy for that guy. I'm going to come at you first, Adrian. Who comes to mind first in terms of that graduation?
Well, in terms of graduation, as someone that's not on the main roster, but I think in the past year, she's made so much growth in and out of the ring, especially with her personality and promo. And that's Jaida Parker from NXT. Oh. If you're looking for an authentic promo, which is probably the number one thing for me, is if I can listen to you and believe what you're saying, believe your convictions, believe your motivations, I'm all there with you. And Jaida Parker, she definitely did her thing in the past year. She's had some great feuds. I think that I'm thinking of the promo in particular with Lola Vice, where I want to say it was right after her match, or after a match, and Jaida came out there and she cut a very unpolished but very energetic promo. Include threw in a couple curse words that we've all talked about how some is unnecessary, but for that situation and for that motivation and that character, it made perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
And that she had the crowd and Adrian by the palm of her hand with that promo. So I'm definitely going to say Jaida Parker this past year definitely took it to the next level.
Oh man, what a choice! And man, someone, she's main roster. She's there. I mean, we could put her there right now. She'd probably level up pretty quickly. Excellent choice to start. Greg, who comes to mind for you at that kind of graduation level?
I mean, I have a couple. I mean, first off, I got to shout out Adrian, 100%, man, on that one. I mean, I remember that Jaida Parker promo, and I sat up like it was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about it, you called it out. It was unpolished, and I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I don't want it to be perfect. I don't want it. I want that emotion to come out. It felt real.
Right.
And at the end of the day, that's what you want. You want it to feel real. And so I'm gonna jump back in the day because you kind of mentioned going back out of lead, like somebody who connected with you, right? And when I was a kid, growing up here in Atlanta, I was WCW through and through. I was always a WCW before WWE. Always loved WWE, but it was just hometown, right?
Definitely.
And I knew what we were. I mean, let's don't get it twisted. I knew we were far second, but it's all good. And I was never a Sting guy. Like, I like Sting, but he wasn't my guy. Luger was my guy. And I always connected with his style of promo. It was like a kind of traditional wrestling promo with a little bit of flair type mixed in, with a little bit of Sting or Dusty type. It's kind of like a mix to me. And to me, it always came across real from the standpoint of who he was. And I just enjoyed that as a kid. I mean, it's just that there was just something about his promos, whether he was a good guy, a bad guy, or whatever. Not saying it wasn't ever always polished. It wasn't that type that you just sat back and go, man, Luger's a great promo. But to me, it felt like him.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't feel scripted. Like we've looked at others, right? And it just comes across so scripted. We've seen Roman. It came across so scripted for so long. But for me, I enjoyed Luger. I mean, and watching him go from the Horseman coming up from Florida to becoming, a good guy, to Barry turning on him and going to the Horseman, to where Luger had to, become a little bit of everything. I mean, I think he's underrated as a promo. I really do. I mean, he's done a lot, but his promos to me were always good. Not always great, but they're always good, and they could talk you into the building in a different way than somebody else.
Yeah, that's definitely one I wouldn't have thought of. But again, we're talking also about we're younger, right? You're more impressionable. Obviously, Adrian chose someone who was more recent, but I can see that because I've talked about it in the past. I'm a very similar vein, Ultimate Warrior. I'm 6 years old. I couldn't tell you any of those promos, but they definitely had me locked into Saturday morning. It was like cartoons and pro wrestling, and that was it. That was what I was watching.
And I think the other thing, just kind of going with the theme, having seen Luger, even as a kid, come in with the Horseman, and now you can use the terms and you understand it. You can go back and look. Well, he's green. He had no idea what he was doing. But you saw that, like, he came in as an 8th grader, and he kind of went to the 9th grade, and kind of through his career, he had to shift. He was in the good guy clique. He was in the bad guy clique. He was in the jock clique. He was in the. I mean, it's kind of, if you think about the high school journey, what we're talking about, and then when he graduates, he's created such a persona that now he's in the Hall of Fame. And without his promos and some of the other things he did, think about that pop he got when he pinned Hogan. It wasn't just about winning that title; it was all the buildup.
Right.
And
Definitely.
I think he just had a lot to do with it. But his years of experience, shall we say, his schooling, led up to that.
And that's a great point to make for tonight, because who we want to look at is who's on that cusp, right? Who can we identify? Because pro wrestling is such a cool thing where, look, we've been in these shows and literally seen people come up, grow up, graduate from the indies, graduate onto another stage. And for a lot of those, WWE just happens to be that is like that great job you want to get out of college, right?
Right.
And we see that, and we see them thrive. So for me, it's looking at, okay, who's going to be that valedictorian through and through, who's going to put in the work, and they're student of the game. Who's that C student who's, I'm happy to be here, right? Who's that overachiever who we see that too? Maybe they got fired, they rest on their laurels, and they come back and they're better for it, right? So tonight we're gonna bring you guys, everyone here, the listening audience, just some great promos of who we are identifying right now as that next class, right? Maybe they're valedictorians to us. I'm gonna put it to the test, and we'll decide amongst us who exactly they are, fitting a certain identity, but. I'm gonna start us off for the night just with someone that I think came on my radar because, again, there's so much wrestling on TV and online and on streaming, and it's hard to keep up, to be honest. And I've tried my best, but it's just hard. It's a lot. You can only dedicate so many hours, and only so many hours in a day. But I'm gonna bring you guys someone who I thought did an interesting job, and I'll stop saying more. This is Myles Borne, NXT.
25 of the toughest men across NXT, LFG, and Evolve, and I was the last man standing, and now I'm going to Battleground. Now, I probably wasn't your first pick, or your second, maybe not even your third, but that's okay. I'm used to this. We've been dancing around this whole thing for a while now, but I have a disability. I'm partially deaf. It affects my speech. It affects the way that I talk. But let me tell you something. Last week, when I eliminated Ethan Page and Sean Spears, I heard y'all going crazy. I don't want to just be known as the deaf kid. I want to be judged by my ability, not by my disability. And that's what everyone with a disability wants to be judged by. So yeah, Battleground, I'm the underdog. I'm facing a dominant champion, but I'm fighting for all the kids out there who are struggling, fighting their own fight. To prove that you too can achieve success. Obafemi, I hope you're listening. Because last week they didn't give me a shot, but look what happened. May 25th, they're not giving me a shot, but I'm ready to shock the world again. I might be hard of hearing, but at Battleground, I will hear Rome announce me, Myles Borne, your new NXT champion.
I want to tell you, fellas, man, it's this just hits all the chords for me, to be honest. Just everything about having a disability, being able to stand off, and you get real Dusty vibes there. I don't know if you pick up on it, like I'm doing it for y'all, I'm doing it for the people kind of situation. But he calls a spade from the beginning. Just structurally, he gets it out of the way. He says, "I know this is the elephant in the room,
right?
But this isn't the reason I want to be known for. This is my jumping on point, and let's leave beyond that, right? Because ultimately, it's very clear, very simple through line. I'm gonna be champ, in spite of everything that people say about me. But for me, it's just that there's a lot of humanity in it. And it could be really easy to ignore. And I hate to say it, but 5 years ago, maybe in a couple of years less than that, I don't think this guy stands a chance on the main roster. I think he's turned into a terrible gimmick. It has a short shelf life. But man, I'm so excited to see, this kind of representation. We were talking about representation, right? Representation matters, and we've had these conversations, but truly, this is a different kind of representation that I don't think we've seen before. And in an era where we saw Zach Gowen on national
Right.
TV recently,
Right.
this is such a cool pairing to it. So I'm gonna come at you, Greg, first. What are your thoughts on this Pro Bowl? Myles Borne, we have this new guy on the roster, but someone who's rising fast.
I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier. It wasn't polished. It was rough around the edges. You can see his confidence and his nerves get in there. His not confidence gets shaken, nerves are in there, which is okay. Which I don't. So many people, this is what NXT, LFG, and all that stuff is for. It's for you to learn this. I like that he did that and that he kind of addressed it, because I'll be honest with you, I had not seen that. So, because I have had so much going on, I can't keep up with everything right now. So it's like
Right.
when he first started talking, I was wondering, okay, what, I hear that, what's going on? So he addressed it. I love that he says, I want to be here for my ability, not my disability.
Right.
And to your point, you talked about representation. Yes, it's nice to be there, but I love the fact that it wasn't the talking point. It wasn't, I am here for representation. You know what I mean? It's there, and people are going to love it. You're going to have people who get inspired by it, which is great. I love the fact that they didn't throw it in your face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that he didn't use it as a crutch. It's just like, hey, here it is, and now let's move forward. This is what I'm here to do, and whatever. Like you said a few years ago, he's Eugene.
Yeah.
Just call it what it is.
Yeah.
And there was a time for that. It is what it is. I love the fact it's different today. But I like that promo. I enjoyed it. It makes me want to see a little bit more from him. My critical feedback, I would have shortened it. I'm a big, from a producer standpoint, I would make it shorter, a little bit more succinct, just because I feel like that's where you start to set people up for losing the audience, especially in today's world. It's much harder to hold them for that long. Like, I'm kind of like, let's go. Let's get in this TikTok generation, and this Twitter generation, and this Instagram, quick reels and stuff like that. We got to keep it moving. But that's a feedback. That's the feedback I have about a lot of promos today. To be honest.
Yeah.
So, but I liked it. I enjoyed it. I'm glad you brought that one.
Yeah.
It makes me think too, also in that particular setting with, I know the NXT crowd, they're very passionate. They're, it's like, it's a thing, right? It's NXT, you get bussed in and everything. But man, even during the promo, there people were like yelling over him. Like there's something to that. You got to know that crowd too, to be able to play into, but fairly respectful. I didn't see that at all. Yeah, thanks. That's I'm looking forward more to it. I mean, his in-ring looks fun. To be honest, like I've seen, he had a really sweet match with Ethan Page, and Ethan Page, did a lot for him too. But again, this is why they're still in NXT, right? Not quite primed them ready to go, but hopefully soon. Adrian, how do you seen? Had you kind of been following him at all, or had a sense of who he was?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the number one thing when you're talking about that guy is that he looks like a Randy Orton clone. That's what the running joke was. Even Randy took part in that. But it wasn't until recently where I found out that he was hearing impaired. I didn't know if he was like partially or fully. I didn't know exactly how that worked. I saw him have a promo before, or at least a talking segment, and I was like, man, that's interesting. I wonder how this is working as it interacting with the crowd, and what's the big picture with him. But that promo is really showing like, hey, this guy has the chops. Like he's giving you his story. He's giving you his motivations. If you look at the guy in the ring, like he looks the part. Like in today's wrestling, like it's not like he's a powerhouse, but he's a nice looking guy, and he can work. So it's awesome to see in today's wrestling Shawn Michaels take a chance on something like on a person, on a talent like this. And I know the internet is currently all in on just giving all the love to HBK and all that. But this is one of those moments where I'm like, yeah, we got to give Sean props on this because they see something with him, and they're gonna let him work. They're gonna let him create his character, get over. I wonder how it's gonna work on a larger scale, like what Greg questioned, because when it comes to, I don't know. Like what I would love to see of him is a podcast or something really breaking down not just his story, but his day to day. Like, what is the difference in training him with his disability compared to another talent? You know, like it's a lot of things within professional wrestling that requires you to hear. And I just and that's not me doubting that guy. That's just me being I'm still amazed that this is a thing. You know what I'm saying? And it's a good thing. It's not like he's just being trotted out like whatever. They're actually doing something with him. So props to him. Like I said, props to Sean. Like I mean, NXT is my favorite show, weekly television show. I've said that multiple times, but like I'm just so intrigued with his learning process. Like how are they working with him in comparison? You know,
and not to get too far ahead because he probably still has plenty of time to hone his craft down there. But he has a machine now behind him, right?
Yeah,
the machine being it's HBK, who has who's I'm sure Triple H he used to have the live feed to the to the performance center and whatnot. So they're all fully in. But you're right. It's how do you take that thing that you incubated in NXT in a very favorable crowd, because we've seen wrestlers just come up and be dead in the water on the main roster.
Absolutely.
Mostly because they're not introduced well enough, right? And as much as I love the way that they introduced Penta lately, or they brought back Aleister Black, a lot of those were not promos that really hyped up the wrestler. There had to be this background knowledge of like, you already know who this is. Rusev got a little bit more on it, but for this guy, it's really gonna have to be some strong vignettes to reintroduce them to a larger audience. To say like, hey, we have this guy. He's been in our system, and you take the baton, and hopefully you can do the rest. But it's gonna be an interesting kind of transition to see how an audience receives it. Like Greg said, we got the TikTok generation. Like, I don't know how much patience people are gonna have for an introduction that way.
But I think you hit it exactly perfect. And we talk about promos, right? And we're talking about school. And I know when people come to my daughter's school and they want to transfer in, they do a tour and they get introduced to the students. Is it right for them? Is it right for the students? All that kind of stuff. That's what we need from him. Once he does go into Raw or to SmackDown, we need those vignettes. We need a sit down. We need something to introduce him because he has a different background and he brings something different to the table. Set that up. But I don't want him as a sympathetic person. I want him to fight against it. Almost like those sit down interviews they did a long time ago with JR, or those recent ones they did with Cole, where let a Cole, or maybe not Cole, but somebody sit down and kind of bring up the disability and let him kill it.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about that. And you can talk about it without talking about it. You know what I mean? Like you can kind of say, yeah, yes, that's there. Yes, I've dealt with that, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm here because I trained with Shawn Michaels. I'm here because of NXT, whatever it may be, but you still address it. And then you allow Pat McAfee and Cole to tell that story on commentary. But I think the sit downs or some type of vignettes would be great for that from a promo perspective, because it does set him up, because he does bring something different to the table. And I love the fact he brings it to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Wait until you see the crowd. This will be the first time you see a crowd actually like chant with a sign language, like sign language. Wait until that gets over. You know what I'm saying? Like some kind of sign
gonna be
language. I know,
wild.
you know,
That's
like
gonna be
everyone.
wild.
Yeah, man. Like
That's awesome.
he's in the perfect situation. He's in the perfect scenario. Like we all three of us, we enjoy WWE
Of
programming.
course.
And we can all acknowledge that that's the biggest company and machine.
Mm-hmm.
That's the right situation for him.
Oh yeah.
Perfect situation.
Yeah. And kudos to him. Shout out to him and anybody that's supporting him, man. Because even the crew is out there. Those are killers, man.
Absolutely.
Everybody on that stage, down to we cut it off, but even Paige coming in. I mean, he's all. This is your next 10 years, man.
Absolutely.
I mean, they look at everybody who's on top right now. They're phasing out, man. They're phasing out. We got to look at that next generation, that next class.
Thinking about that, and I just had to touch on this. There's a reason Ethan Page is there.
Oh yeah.
And he's being paired with the right people because he's there to help lift people up.
Absolutely.
And my goodness, is he not doing a wonderful job? Like, I mean, it's unbelievable what he's doing. And he's taking people under his wing. And I heard an interview with him saying that, I'm older. I didn't expect to go to NXT. I didn't expect to even get an opportunity.
Yeah.
But he also knows what he's there for. And those two being paired together, I mean, come on. We used to talk about 1, 2, 3 Kid being the measuring stick, right? Hey, can you work with him? That's Ethan Page, in my opinion, right now in NXT. Put him with Page.
That's a good comparison.
Can he go?
Yeah.
Can he hang not just in the ring, but can he hang on the mic?
Promo,
can he do all this other stuff with Page? If Page puts that stamp on him, that's just how it feels to me.
Yeah.
Man, and Page is hungry because he's not gonna mince words. He's gonna be like, "Yo, he's good," or he's paid his dues long enough. Cool. So that was Myles Borne, our first on the cusp. I wouldn't call him a valedictorian yet, but we're gonna call him a future prospect in the business here, if you will.
Right.
I'm gonna come at you, Greg, to think about what promo and what rising star you brought. Who's that next student of the class that you're looking at as the next Breakout star?
So the one I've got is she's been on top, shall we say, and then falling away for whatever reasons. We're not going to get into that. But I feel like there's so much potential there. To me, it's a unique promo style. To me, it's a different voice, and that's one of the things I don't like hearing everybody be the same. Kind of going back to my Luger comment. Back at that time, there was a formula where you yelled at the camera and you had all these different things, right? And that's I think what stood out for me to Luger is a little bit different. This one stands out to me because her voice is different and everything to that effect. And it's not WWE, people. I know y'all get on us about bringing WWE stuff, and it's all, oh, y'all love WWE. Oh, you love the Fed, all that. Yeah, we do. But we love wrestling. So I'm going to bring you somebody who's not WWE and never has been WWE. How about that?
Back last time we saw you, you were victorious over Julia Hart, and now tonight you are in the main event of Collision facing Billy Starks. How does it feel to be back?
Well, it feels great, and if you know me, you know I don't like to do things by any half measure, so being in the main event tonight is just another Saturday night for me, but I tell you what, I'm very excited to be in the ring with a young whippersnapper like Billy Starks. Oh, it just injects something in me, just really gives me that fire, and you know what, Billy, she has a lot of fire herself, and I like that a lot. She gets knocked down so many times, and she keeps getting back up. And you know what? I do really respect that about her. But Billy, I don't want you to mistake respect for mercy. If you step up to me, I'm going to hit you right back and knock you on your ass. No hesitations, no second chances. So if I were you, I'd be smart or find out the hard way. Your choice. One more thing. I've noticed a couple of the girls putting their names in the hat for the Owen Hart Foundation tournament. So you know what? I'm going to do that tonight myself. I'll be entering. And you know what, Lexi? I think it's very fitting that I returned at All In last year, and this year, I'm going to leave a champion.
I just look at Jamie as somebody who is just on the cusp of that next level. Obviously, injuries and things like that have hurt, but just talking about that promo as a whole, I enjoy her style. It's a little scripted to me, but there's some pieces in there that's like, okay, now we're kind of getting a little bit more intense. I like the camera work, how it kind of panned to her, and she got more serious at that moment, and then they came back out. I like how that was produced. It was a little bit different because it was like, all right, we're going to talk general, now we're going to talk specific, now we're going to come back out and talk general again. I like that. But I love her voice. I like how she delivers. It's just different. I know some people compare her, to Becky a little bit, but to me, it's a very different style and a different sound, and it's fresh. Everything she presents to you is fresh, in my opinion. It's not cookie cutter, and that's one of the things I just look at her as being that next person. She may be like a freshman in school if we talk about that, or maybe a sophomore. I don't feel like she's a junior, senior, and she's at that valedictorian stage yet.
Right.
But that track is sitting there if given that ball and a little bit more production from certain people, right? I think there's some assistance there, but I just love her style. So Adrian, I'm gonna come to you. What do you think?
When it comes to Jamie, like I don't want to take this and spin it in a negative light, but I'm gonna be honest because it's a podcast. AEW's dropped the ball with her. Like we gotta think about Jamie as champion. We gotta think about how over Jamie Hayter was. And you know what? I'm not gonna use the injury as an excuse. Like it's gonna flat out come down to how that company has used her and utilized her. She returned on a pre-show, if I'm not mistaken. She didn't return on that All In. She was there, but she was on the pre-show, and they changed the look with the red hair, and it threw people off. Like it just seemed super strange how she was over and things were working, but when she comes back, you're making these changes that will throw the audience off. And you're not really giving her that opportunity to really shine. That's really been one of those things about how Tony utilizes his talent. Like he'll be hot about you and use you and have you, but then once he's cold on you, you're chilling. But then when you also throw in rumors and speculation and all of that, does she want to go elsewhere? Like, you get into those politics of the business, and you kind of understand why they kind of put a pause on some stuff. But like I said, she was over. As en route to her becoming champ, she was over with the crowd. People loved her, and they dropped the ball. And hopefully, I'm hoping for her sake, that something turns around really quickly, because it is so much talent in that company, in that division, and she could be a major cog into what's going on. So she's a perfect choice for, next up, even though she was champ. It's crazy. It's bizarre. It's bizarre.
See, I was trying to be good, bro. I was trying not to say nothing negative about AEW.
Hey, let me be the hater today. Let me be the one, because
I was just throwing out there about her promo, man. But no, you're right. You're right. You're 100% right. It's just wild. Like I don't get it, whether there was rumors or not. It doesn't matter. She was so over. Right. You bring her back. I mean, you could hear it during that promo. She said a couple of things. You hear the crowd cheer, and I think that was from Collision. Yeah. So. Yeah. But just a question back to you, Adrian, before I come to you, Adelaide.
Yeah.
From her promo style, what do you think about her style of promo?
I'll be honest with her promo. It does seem kind of scripted. It seems as though she's still a little green when it comes to the delivery. Like it didn't feel as organic as others, but also it's backstage. You're probably heavily coached into these points, and you've been practicing. So I get the repetition thing, but again, it's one of those points of you need reps. You need reps, And if you're putting me on the shelf, I'm not getting those reps. So I don't know. Again, maybe I'm just pointing the blame on Tony on this, but yeah, man, like that was my only thing. It did seem a little scripted.
Yeah, for sure. Adelie, what do you think?
Again, not trying to make excuses, but here's someone that, at least those of us that have been watching long enough, we always identified as a player, right? Even before she came to the States.
Definitely.
I mean, she made her name in Stardom, B. Priestley, I remember before she retired, even Chris Wolf, who would do a lot of independence, and she was big in the Japanese scene too. She could always go, right? She always had that style. She paid her dues multiple times, right? Across several companies. Has that year off with COVID, right? Because nobody was working, there was nothing happening, and correctly, or with visas and whatnot, or just I know a lot of wrestlers didn't even stay in Japan. Like I think Osprey ended up going back too, because especially the British wrestlers, because it was quarantining for weeks
Right.
before you could even do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I know she lost a year there, and then the injury and whatnot. So it's just weird to going back to that point. It's weird to be talking about someone who was an AEW champion,
Right.
yet we're still talking about them being on the cusp of that next level when we know she has all the tools. She's an amazing pro wrestler, right? But again, it goes back to the idea: has she also been given the right partner? It's my question. I don't think she's had the right dance partner yet. And you could argue, well, should be able to go and have a great promo battle with anyone. Yes and no, because if you're not being positioned in that way, because we've seen it not just in AEW, but even though somebody might be the champ and you're not positioned as a champ, and you're not given that status on the mic, on the screen, on the promo materials, nobody's going to see you that way. I don't care how good you are.
We just saw it with Tiffany and Charlotte.
That's a fact.
In the beginning, it was positioned as Charlotte was the star and Tiffany wasn't, and Tiffany was champion. No, I definitely agree with what both of you guys are saying. Hopefully, and I'm holding out hope, AEW does the right thing with her on the finals. I really hope. I mean, we'll see if they actually do it. But
not to draw that card, but man, as a woman, I mean, look, Big E just made that whole thing about like aging as a female in pro wrestling. Like, it's a real thing, right? It's not the same shelf life. It's not fair, but she's 30. I mean, that's not young in the game. Not saying that's old in the game either, but this is the time. Like, there's got to be a shift, right? And it might, like Adrian implied, it might not be fully her choice.
100%. I mean, it's a body business. It's a looks business, and at the end of the day, guys can control that better than girls can. It is what it is. Welcome to genetics. So I mean, there's nothing we can all do about it, right? The shelf life is shorter, but I think she's sitting there. She's a diamond waiting to happen for AEW, in my opinion.
Yep.
We've already seen how popular she can be. And if Mercedes does what I think is the right thing going forward, there could be a huge program between those two. And you could have her right back on top.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, that's I know we're talking about somebody different, but I was like, you know what? This is somebody who's been in the mainstream, one of the big boy companies, been up and down. How do you respond, right? It's kind of like that kid who had really good grades, right? Went through a couple of semesters of just really bad testing or whatever it may be. And like, do you bounce back or not? We've had those schoolmates, right? I remember one I had in high school. Dude was so smart. Kind of fell off for one quarter, and he was done. Like he couldn't get his confidence back, and his grade point average just dropped. Screwed up all his whole college and everything because he just couldn't get it back on track. Because psychologically, he couldn't bounce back. Somebody like Jamie going through her situation, I say that the injury, but then it feels like for whatever reason AEW doesn't get behind her when she comes back. Are you going to adjust your promo style? Are you going to come back with that fire, which I think she can? To you guys' point, she's got to get those reps. This Owen Hart thing, her staying in it. I think there's some momentum being built. I would love to see some promo battles between her and Mercedes leading up to what is All In coming up. So,
Yep. On Texas, that new style, man, that makes her stand out so much more now. To be honest, that was a great move for her. Awesome, great. Well, that's not someone I thought about tonight for a graduation promo. But man, yeah, I'm definitely rooting for her because she has it, and she has that it factor for sure.
Definitely.
Adrian, we're gonna come to you to give us our last promo for the night. But
Cool.
who did you bring? Because we're talking a lot about folks at different phases in this graduation levels. Who did you bring tonight?
Definitely. I brought an AEW promo as well.
Ooh.
So we're AEW marks now, fellas. Congratulations.
Boogers in my nose, a log of text messages from Chris Statlander left on read, and everything unresolved between us. And now I'm ending my day. We tried to hash it out speaking the language that we do, pro wrestling. But things are still unresolved, and they've been tampered with by none other than the Death Riders. So I'll figure out my stuff with that. I'm sure one of these days we're bound to do this dance for a long time. But Marina, Yuta, I get it. I've been on your guys' butt. Willow Nightingale, I say nothing matters, but this matters to me. Pro wrestling matters to me, and you guys always get in everybody else's way, everybody else's matches. Of course you would do it to me. Foolish to think that you wouldn't. So Mox, I know in your Death Riders, you guys think you already have the problem with Marina Shafir. But I've already been a problem for you guys. And now, I'm going to be the biggest problem.
That promo is different than what the normal Willow Nightingale promo is. And her character, that's part of the reason why I brought it, and I enjoyed it. But let's talk about it, fellas. I'll go ahead and put it out there. Willow Nightingale is definitely next up in All Elite Wrestling and Pro Wrestling. She just re-signed with the company for a multi-year deal, so congratulations to her. She's still young in this business. She's been working overseas in Japan doing her thing. She's getting her reps in. But the thing that I enjoy most about Willow is something that's so unique in today's pro wrestling, which is a natural baby face. There are plenty of baby faces in all of these companies, but it's not that many natural baby faces. Just without them feeling too corny or them feeling too forced or fake. She's naturally bubbly. She's naturally charismatic. If you've ever seen how she interacts with the fans, they absolutely adore the woman. And it seems like her coworkers love her. And I'm sure that's part of the reason why she re-signed with All Elite is because her coworkers enjoyed her. But she's a natural baby face, and it's a huge opportunity there with her because she's getting better in the ring. She's getting better, more confident. And that I'm enjoying the fact that she's in this current involvement or storyline. We always say AEW doesn't have storylines. They do. It's just that most of them aren't interesting to me. But this one, the Death Riders and all that stuff, her involvement in this, she gets rubbed shoulders with Edge. She gets rubbed shoulders with Mox. It's guys that are established in the business, guys that have been at a high level. So hopefully her involvement, she's getting smartened up by some of the better guys in her company. And hopefully she can be utilized to help uplift that women's division. So Adelie, let's go to you first, man. What are your thoughts on Willow?
I want to break it down in parts. So I want to talk strictly about this promo.
Yeah.
Put it in context to what you said, because there was a lot to unpack to what you said and a lot I want to dig into.
Yeah.
As a promo, you're right. It's a departure because generally she's been introduced as this happy-go-lucky. I'm happy to be here. I love pro wrestling. I love everybody. That was literally her gimmick, right?
Right.
She had the hugger gimmick that Bailey didn't want.
Basically.
This was like really her gimmick. Like, this is like who I am. But you've seen her evolve because you knew she could go right in the ring. Like, you don't see it's not like this badass, but let's be real, she's a badass in the ring, like, straight up, right? She can go. She's done some gnarly matches, but man, this promo is almost isolating. Say, like, I've had my wars with Statlander, I will come back to it, right? You know, she's the Generico, Steen, you know, or you know, Kevin Owens. That we're gonna come back to that, right? We're gonna have some bangers. That's still gonna be there. But right now, it's this dejected feeling, was like this dread, right? She even ends a promo with this, I gotta take care and address this situation over here that's somewhat out of my wheelhouse. But hey, like Marina and Yuta and like you know, they really positioned her to be that other, you know, if this was like a Marvel, you know, coming to face Civil War thing, like that's her that's her counterparts, right? It's Marina. Who, look, Marina gets her own, you know, unfortunately her own criticism for what, you know, for a lot of reasons. But here's someone who's still pursuing it. And look, to be honest, as someone that's seen her at these tiny indie shows, she's trying to improve her craft. She is trying there. So I think as much as we give AEW with storylines and consistency and, you know, not the week to week, the wrestlers themselves are trying to better and position themselves in a better way. And Willow too, you know, seen her at New Japan shows where she didn't have a match. Right. She's just hanging out and she's just out there watching, right, and cheering folks on and analyzing and talking to others, students of the game, truly, you know, to differing levels, you know, of what we see on the screen. But for me, she got it. There's something unique about the way they're even packaging her, because you look at even the shirts that she has, they're like bubbly shirts, but then they have like metal, like
she's a metalhead. Yeah, she's a metalhead.
Right. Yeah, she kind of straddles this interesting this interesting pocket in pro wrestling that I think is, I wouldn't say it's untapped. I think, you know, others have done it to different extents, but let's be real, you know, also representation does matter, right? She is mixed, and to see someone who's of that body type too, who's just not, that's not who we're looking at, right? We just talked about Myles Borne early, and we said we're trying to see past that, and we have. The audience doesn't, in you know, in the past that might have been something we fixate on and we draw attention to, and she's just good. For me, she's just locks in the audience, and there's really not much else for me to say in terms of her development. I think she's gonna get there, but I want to see where this goes, because I wouldn't want her to be an afterthought, because you mentioned elevating the women's division, right? I don't know if this elevates the women's division as much as it's going to elevate her and Marina in that context, for sure, and then spin it off to the women's division, because the big bad is still Mercedes, right? Mercedes is your final boss. She's holding on the belts. Let's elevate everybody else, because she's certainly one of person who they made it clear she's one of the new faces of AEW. I mean, every time you go to an AEW show, one of the marquee things I look at, because I bought the first one the first time I went, is that I was their shirt, and they plastered on your back, and it's terrible because I don't wear it because of that. But the front is all the current stars, and I think I have one with CM Punk at some point. Nice. But that shirt has evolved every single show, and Willow is on that shirt now. Nice. It has been on iterations of that shirt, and that tells me, just like when you get that commemorative cup, that tells me who they have the confidence in. That tells me who they see as a star, and she clearly is being positioned that way. I just want to see her take it to the next level. Let's make her champ, right? Because that's the next logical piece. There is no, I don't want to see a mid-level title. I want to see the championship put on her, because of moments like this where she understands I'm still that character, right? But I have range. I can be this other thing too, right?
Definitely. Greg, what are your thoughts, man?
So going off just that promo alone, I didn't like the beginning. I felt a little corny, but beyond that, I thought everything else was good. It was so funny you said that about the hugger gimmick. I thought about her being Bailey 2.0, but I like the fact that she's a Bailey 2.0 with the edge. Like there's a little bit of, shall I say, Ripley in there. Like there's a little bit of Bailey with a touch of Ripley on the side.
Punk rock.
Yeah. Like there's that little what Bailey was missing, to be honest. If you really think about it, what Bailey became so white meat that it was like it just didn't transfer that well to the main roster. You got to have that little bit of an edge, and across the board, even Cena has always had that little bit of an edge when he was that long-term babyface. So it's like there's that piece there. And I think Willow has it. I think that promo, contrasting it to the one I brought, shows you what this women's division can be.
Definitely.
I mean, you're sitting there with, I'm like, you're talking about mid-title, mid-range titles or the heavyweight title, the women's heavyweight title. Man, there's two girls we just talked about who are not totally homegrown, but they're AEW talents, right?
Right.
They could carry that women's division. And, that's not a knock on Mercedes or anybody else like that, but I think Mercedes needs these two and others like that. Very similar to parallel this back to TNA, Kurt Angle needed AJ and Samoa Joe when he came in to TNA. He needed that.
Right.
And, dude, they had bangers, and they helped build TNA back then to where it was going. And I feel like these three, and you could sprinkle in others, but I think it's interesting. We both brought AEW women,
right.
And guys, we don't talk about these, what we bring. So we had no idea what each other was going to bring, but we both brought these to say these are our next big stars.
Definitely.
And you sprinkle in somebody with the star power of Mercedes, whether it's been diminished a little bit over the past year or so, debatable, but you mix that together, man, you got a nice cocktail for AEW for the future.
I mean, the most over talent in AEW is Timeless Tony Storm.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I know a lot of the focus is on Mercedes and her being that title collector or hoarder or whatnot. But there's a huge issue right now when it comes to Tony Storm. She's practically beat everyone, and her number one rival, the person that really pushed her to that next level, Mariah May, we don't know what's going on with her. So this is a perfect opportunity, and I'm so glad that two of us brought AEW women because it just clearly shows that roster, that women's roster at AEW has so much untapped potential. If Chris Statlander stays healthy, she could be a huge star, And I mean, it's plenty of talent there. It's just a couple little decisions here and there, and that could be cooking. That could be hot grease, man. That could be hot grease.
For sure. And the thing is, you have a nice small mix of veterans in there.
Yes.
And that's what I like about it. And I think the women's division in AEW has more potential than the men's just because of that. And when I say that, because they can have more of an identity. Going back to TNA. TNA back in that time frame, you had a Christian, you had a Kurt Angle, you had the Dudleys or Team 3D or whatever. They all came over. But you had a knockouts division that was unfreaking believable.
Yeah.
I mean, with Kong, ODB, Gail Kim, the beautiful people. I mean, you had people who could go. You had the looks. You had the brawn, if you will, with Kong and that group. You had crazy talent, and that to me, the knockouts laid the groundwork for what we see in WWE today.
Absolutely.
That's what I look at in AEW.
Not an argument at all.
AEW has, we've never said they don't have banger matches across the board.
Right.
But as far as building a division, and you could identify yourself and say, man, this right here, let's invest in these, these women superstars in AEW. Oh my gosh. It could turn the company around and make it so different, much more of an alternative, in my opinion.
And to your point, now we're talking about a generation where, look, I can ask a lot of women right now, and they'll tell me if they're into it. Rhea Ripley, right? Everybody knows her. She's right there up the top. With the current, whatever the current Rushmore is of modern pro wrestling, she's right there. but that's just an avenue, right? They're gonna know others, be like, oh, who are the other lady wrestlers? Who are the other women's wrestlers now?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a curiosity, right? So why not take advantage of it? To your point, where hey, we have this great roster. Let's spotlight them. Let's keep doing that. And I'm not saying there's rumors like an Evolution 2 show, which is like way after the fact. It seems as something that should have happened a long time ago. But for an AEW show, I don't think it needs to be like an all women's. But hey, put them back every time they put the women on the main event. It's been great.
Mm-hmm.
It's been amazing. It's been the stellar match of the show. I'm thinking back even a long time ago now, but Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa.
Yeah.
This was still like back in
Mm-hmm.
getting out of COVID, but they put on a great match that everybody was talking about, right? Because it was not something that anybody expected them to do. And it doesn't have to go hard like that. Like you said, it could just be a straight up great
Mm-hmm.
evolution of a match. And they got the building blocks there too, right? In addition to a Willow, look, Willow's already a veteran there. Chris Statlander's already a veteran there. We named off everybody who can be a building block for that division.
Megan Bain.
Megan, like she just got on. Like
dude, she's one of those. You look at her on TV. It's the Adrian strip club test. The TV's on mute.
Boom, who is
and
that?
You're walking by that TV. You're like, who the hell is that?
Yep.
Let me sit down and drink a beer with this guy, Adrian, and let him educate me on this person.
Yep. I mean, and the thing is, you said the building blocks. I would argue they had the building blocks, not just in the ring, but as we saw tonight in the promo.
Absolutely.
And the ability to tell stories.
Yeah.
And this is where I sit back and I'll defend Mercedes. I think Mercedes has been booked horribly since being in AEW. And I don't put it all on her. I just don't. But I think she needs players.
Yeah.
When she had Becky, when she had Bailey, Bailey and her, holy crap, her and Charlotte, their stuff, not just in the ring, but outside the ring, the stories they told, everything else, she needs that.
Right.
But for her to get that, I think that whoever the powers that be, not just TK, but others, need to say we're going to focus in on this division and allow them to rise up with her, man, and let her be the leader of that. And I say the leader, not just on the screen, but behind the scenes, if she's willing to do that. And bring all those girls up with her. And it could be huge. It really could. I mean, the story that she could tell, which is wild because she hasn't had the heavyweight title, but the fact that she could lose to Jamie in this Owen Hart thing, and there's a whole story right there you could tell.
Immediately.
I mean, she has a loss in a big match. Now is she going to lose the title to her? I mean, like, there's so many places you can go, but I think the cool thing tonight we saw is that there's potential there promo wise too in AEW.
You mentioned something there, and thinking about school, thinking about, we're talking about these graduating classes, right? We just mentioned someone. We're not even talking about a graduating class. We're talking about currently who's on top, who can make a division pop.
Mm-hmm.
And look, as much as we are following WWE because they're hot, and ever since WrestleMania 39, everything's been like on a tear. Look, there's been criticism lately of it, right? Is Cena kind of dead in the water? Is this really going anywhere? I'm hearing Travis Scott's going to do a tag team with them. A lot of people they're still with it, right? But maybe they're not looking week to week. They're like, well, let's look over here. What do they got going over here? Let me take a peek, right? It's a perfect time. I'm not saying everybody's we're gonna have a shift over suddenly, but there's an audience. And look, the fact that AEW, God bless them, they're still on TV, and I was one of those ardent people in the very beginning too. But Adrian, you posed a question, in just conversation through one of the chats, but it was like, what gets you going, right? What keeps you coming to story arcs, to pro wrestlers? And for us, it's the promo, right?
Right.
But for me, that hasn't always been there, and not because, to Greg's point, it's not because they don't have the ability or they haven't had the standout moments. Is we haven't been exposed to it consistently,
right?
And I think that's going to be that next move for this generation. So I appreciate the conversation, fellas, and this is cool because a lot of time we've been focusing on everybody on top, right? guys and gals. And I really want to, now that I'm getting longer in the tooth over here, I'm like, okay, I want to see what the next 10 years looks like, and
That's it.
let's stop and analyze, because I don't want to get old and be like, I don't like these new guys, these girls. I want to be what is it, the stunt granny? I want to be the stunt grandpa at a show, but the one that knows like all the storylines and all the wrestlers' names. So looking at it from this, I really hope that these pro wrestlers endure. And we're talking about a graduation, but they're writing their next chapter every day. Every promo is a new opportunity, as long as they're there and giving it their best shot, whether it's written, whether it's something that they're coming off the cuff. But for tonight, since we looked at the next generation, and maybe some of these for you guys were the valedictorians, maybe they were the C students, the slackers, the jocks, whatever you might qualify them as. We wish them the best, and really looking forward to seeing who really stands out for this next generation. So, look, this is in school terms, we're really coming down to the end of the school year, and in some ways in pro wrestling, it's cyclical, right? So whether you've been listening to us for a long time, we encourage you to take a little study session. Go back to the archive, check us out. We got tons of episodes, pique your interest. We got the funny, we got the more serious, we got some historical ones. We look at the Von Erichs, great episode to look back on. But whatever piques your interest, check out the Talk I'm in the Building archive, intothebuilding.com. That'll take you to the YouTube page directly. Like, comment, subscribe, drop us a comment, anything that you like. Follow us on the socials. But for us, the crew here at Talk I'm in the Building, from Adrian, from Greg, this is Adalid on the West Coast, wishing y'all a good one. And until next time, we hope you get talked into the building.